Good afternoon. I am Danny Miller. And this is the Video Gaming News. A warm welcome to all of our friends, fans, community members, participants and viewers worldwide on a variety of different platforms, watching us, listening us and communicating with us from wherever you are. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for supporting me personally, our community here of gamers, as well as our charitable fundraising, which is actually the most important part of it all. As you know, at present, I'm supporting the charity called Mind, a charity based in Britain that is providing services for people who are experiencing any form of mental health difficulty. And they work from offices. They're based around the country in many high streets. And they are serviced by volunteers and professionals who are delivering individual and group counselling, also giving and delivering some other advisory services if people are experiencing homelessness or have difficulties with their statutory benefits, or any other form of advice on the practical level is being given, delivered and provided by the people who work for Mind. So we are supporting the effort, we're supporting the works, and certainly the ethos in which we have got to be kind and pleasant towards those who are more vulnerable in our communities. And I just like to invite everyone from our gaming community to do exactly the same. Support Mind. You could do so if you click on the panels that I have on my About page here, and you'll get all the information. It goes to Tiltify. Tiltify is a company that provides charitable fundraising on the global level. And whenever you donate, it goes, the revenue goes directly to the charity concerned. In this case, it's obviously the Mind charity, and all the information is provided on the link. You can also watch this stream, my gameplay streams as well as podcasts, at any time through the same link, which is going to be very useful if you want to save on your 4G or 5G internet allowance. All right, how's everybody doing today? Today is a big day, in fact. The day when we are discovering and discussing what Sony and PlayStation are giving us for our console, and our PlayStation 5 console, I should say, and all the titles that will be coming to our console within the next 6 to 18 months. So in my local area, yet again, it's a drizzly, rainy, windy type of autumnal day. Not a very good day to go out, and a good day to be playing some games, to be indoors, and just make sure that when you're playing games that every 90 minutes you get up and stretch, you do something, you walk about a bit. Don't just be seated for 6 or 7 hours on the trot. It's not a good idea. And my community members here will tell you that frequently in the past when I played Destiny or FPS games, I was always doing them in a standing position. I was never seated. I think recently I've gone down the other way, and I need to change that. I've got to say, I need to change that. I have found myself sometimes feeling a bit uncomfortable when seated for a few hours, but I always take a break after about 90 minutes. I walk around a bit, I have something to drink, something to eat, and keep myself properly hydrated. I do not like being in that static position all that time. So if you are one of the guys who likes hammering certain PvP games, just make sure you take breaks in between different matches. Very, very important. All right, so like I said to you yesterday, a big day really was looming, not on the horizon, but more or less immediately, as Sony announced a few days ago that they will be doing their presentation State of Play, and we are going to be discussing everything that was introduced yesterday in their live on-air presentation of the new titles, and we'll have a sort of in-depth analysis on all that indeed would have come to us through Sony. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hopefully you'll find some of the titles of interest, and you'll see what I personally also felt about the presentation. Also, I'll give you just a bit of a rundown on what I've been doing gaming-wise, what I'm playing at the moment, and what's been happening here with my consoles and PC. So, first of all, I want to ask everyone, how are you guys doing today? Is it raining and drizzling in your local area? Is it really as misty and as cold as it is here where I am. If you're in England, you probably are having exactly the same weather. I've seen some threats of flooding, the usual lengthy periods of drizzle, which really affect and annoy everyone. Not sure why it's come back to that sort of weather. We are progressing towards June, and it looked like we were literally streamlining towards the summer months. It was very warm, reaching was about 25, 26 the other day. In fact, proper summery temperatures. Gone out a few times to a neighbouring town for lengthy walks, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But it was just for a short period of time, short spells, and all of that's gone. And I think everyone will tell you, if the weather outside is extremely poor, there's no better way to engage with other friends but through online video gaming and Twitch streams and YouTube streams and Discord and everything else that these platforms offer. So make sure that you capitalize on this wonderful new opportunity that we all have at our fingertips. Make sure you never ever play games by yourself. That's most important. Well, obviously, sometimes you may want to be doing a single player run on a particular title, but do it on Twitch, do it on YouTube, and make sure you build your community, have other viewers, maybe even on Discord. Discord is allowing the streams to be done to the platform, and you can make new friends, and you can play a single player game and talk to others who are watching, providing you with comments and views. It's all about the community. It's all about us doing something that will be beneficial to ourselves and others, and everything I do here on the channel has been like that from the beginning. And I've got to say that I did set up this channel as an experiment, just being curious about how this would work. It was within the first couple of years as the Twitch streams began to take off, and just absolutely astonished by the number of new friends I made, the quantity of interesting content that would have been given to me through our participants, and overall a very, very good, very healthy, very pleasant, very mature adult community spirit coming from everyone who ever has been coming to this channel. And we have quite a few regulars, and we have lots of people in recent times watching the streams on VOD through Twitch and YouTube, so that's all been a bit different compared to the past. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful time through which I could provide adequate support to those people who are more vulnerable in our communities, and also make new friends, connect with other gamers worldwide, exchange my thoughts and views with everyone. Something that I really greatly enjoy. I always felt going to live music events, watching films was not something to be done in a solitary fashion. You would want to go there, have a look, and then talk about your experience with other people. And I think the opportunities for us to connect today are just simply incredible. Never ever in the history of humanity did we have a better opportunity to make new friends and new connections globally. And I think that is changing our mindset and the way we are. Generally, I'm observing that in my local community. And it is highly significant, because don't forget, as human beings, we are very adaptable, very flexible, and we really soak up everything that comes to us in our environment or from elsewhere. And we change, we change drastically. The way I operate today is, beyond any form of comparison, the way I would have done it maybe 10 or 20 years ago. And in fact, every 5 years there has been a major change introduced. I never thought that this capacity for us to communicate would have been as great and as well enhanced as it is today. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Making friends every day and making sure I never feel alone and never feel isolated. Always well in sync with our colleagues and friends, and also people who are sharing the same interest. Anyway, coming back to what we are to discuss today. First of all, I'll tell you I had completed Hellblade and Lara Croft Tomb Raider Ultimate Edition. I told you all about this yesterday, so no need to be elaborating. I want to just say that they're wonderful games and highly recommend them to everyone. My surprise really with the Tomb Raider was that it came across as a kind of a survival stroke horror game more than the adventure stroke action type of title, and I didn't expect this, so I was surprised to a degree. But on the other hand, I really loved the remaster, and everything in it worked perfectly. Enjoyed the unlockables, enjoyed everything in the game. So really, for me, top title, and it just made me really jump on the other two titles that basically constitute that trilogy, the Lara Croft Survival Trilogy. And if you are on Epic, you would have been given the trilogy free of charge about 18 months ago. And was it last year? I forget the date. So I hope you claimed it, and obviously you'll be able to then play on your gaming PC. And the graphics and everything else, the framing in particular is mouth-watering, and you will enjoy every bit of it. Hellblade, I talked about at length. Need say no more, and just recommend Aurora and Melina Jürgens stream with the gameplay. That was streamed live a few days ago, and if you are a fan of the game, definitely go to Twitch and enter Aurora Melina Jürgens. You will get it. I think it was on Xbox On. The stream lasting about 70 minutes, and definitely very interesting to see how the protagonist, the lead actress, and the musician who created the title song for the game indeed are playing the game and discussing it live on air. So these were my gaming adventures. At the moment, I've gone down the route of Death Stranding, and I know that I told you I'd be doing Immortals of Avium, but the fact is, with Immortals of Avium, I've got it downloaded, but I thought I wanted to compare the next-gen approach, a kind of a groundbreaking approach that both Hideo Kojima and Ninja Theory had applied to the titles, and that is Death Stranding and Hellblade 2 respectively, because I feel those games are bringing us to the new level in which we are experiencing the medium that is becoming more and more cinematic as well as interactive. And it's not just interactive in terms of us being the protagonist or, walking the character and collecting inventory. It's interactive in terms to which we engage with the medium. The immersive quality, the cinematic depth, the ultra-realism, identification with the lead character, us being cognitively involved with the decisions that these characters are making. I did say that Hellblade for me was slightly a step up in terms of how we became the lead character. We were not just observing the character or feeling something, but we were actually that character, and that therefore is to a degree slightly superior. But Death Stranding also has the same elements of very vivid graphics, very much close to real life experience, and that's particularly the case in the director's cut. So that's the recent edition that has enhanced graphics, sound, and everything else. Also, the diagnostics in the director's cuts are really staggering. So you will be surprised with how detailed the analysis of everything you're doing is going to be. And as I said, both games are genre defining and I guess generation breaking to a degree in terms of what they're offering to all of us. And it's just literally the games that are changing the way the medium is perceived, and they will be affecting, no doubt, the way films and video games are being made in the future, as there is certainly capacity for that degree of interactivity arising from both titles. And I certainly would enjoy watching these titles in an IMAX cinema, which would be equipped with some buttons by which we can be simply taking decisions, randomly. An audience member could be taking certain decisions, and then the activity on the screen would be affected, and we could be getting lots of different outcomes. Just think, the monetization element, if you had the same title watched 20 or 30 times, and every time you'd have a slightly different outcome, you'd be enjoying different types of behaviors of your protagonists, and I guess soaking up a slightly altered narrative, then, it would also provide a lot of financial rewards for those who are creating those titles. So I think that is the direction, that is the future. We did see a few years back attempts for the interactive films to become the mainstream in PC gaming in particular. This was in the late 90s, early noughties, and it never took off because the tech was not as advanced, and secondly, the concept of the game was more of us being like a static bystander more than being an active participant. And I think the games like the ones such as described, Death Stranding and Hellblade, are giving us everything the other way, and therefore they are so significant. Death Stranding, a great game, and try it if you are on PlayStation 5. Make sure you play it first, because really visually it is just so appealing. I can just walk and walk my character Sam Porter everywhere, and you know, the environment, the landscapes, the wild, and the barren landscape is so appealing. And I think the difference there is it does not represent the emotional state of the lead character compared to what you get in Hellblade. Anyway, that's just you know, a few remarks on the difference and similarities between the two titles, because it did cross my mind as I was playing Hellblade that I really need to revisit Death Stranding, as I thought it had those elements that could be changing the way we perceive cinematic, highly interactive, immersive video games, and also the elements that can be affecting the way films are made. So, you know, if you have a chance, play both games. Hellblade is a shortish game. I've completed it in about 12 hours, between 12 and 14 hours, and Death Stranding is very big. You will be walking a lot, and you will be resolving lots of mysteries there in that very weird, very unusual, and very terrifying open world which Hideo Kojima had created for us. And don't forget, you have so many cameo appearances in there that include Mads Mikkelsen and Guillermo del Toro, and you have even Jeff Keighley of you know, the Game Awards. He also is appearing in the game, so just make sure you played back to back and you complete it all. Right, so I did play 2 games that arrived to Game Pass this week, and not just this last 10 days. I told you a bit about them previously. One is called Haunty, when you're playing a ghost and you're trying to learn about your environment, and you're very investigative, you're very sort of curious, you want to be changing the way certain characters and objects are. So an indie game delivered in monochrome, fairly old school graphics, but you know, a bit like a platformer. You move the character around and you move these objects, and you know, it seemed quite enjoyable. So I really enjoyed a bit of that game. I've gone in just to try to see what it was like, because I've seen our friend Miss Mika, the Swedish streamer, who primarily streams big RPGs like Baldur's Gate or in recent times Elden Ring. She also streamed it the other day, so I was a bit curious to see as to why, as the game is quite different compared to what she usually does. And it was just that sort of excitement, you know, the excitement that the new title is giving you some extra entertainment in a way which is diverse to what you usually play, and liked what I've seen, therefore played it on cloud, and it just worked perfectly. Not played it for long, so I can't give you an in-depth analysis, but certainly a game that is captivating and thoroughly enjoyable. I think one of those characteristics of lots of indie games you get on Xbox Game Pass is exactly that. They're easy to play, they're brief, they're short, and they're highly entertaining. And that's really what you want. You want to have a break from the games that take you 150 hours to complete. And, you know, you want to have this sort of experience of a different type of activity. And Haunty is providing exactly that. And then another game, which is very enjoyable, right? I'll tell you a bit more about it as I played it quite a bit, is Another Crab's Treasure. Right, so let me get some information on screen. Just bear with me a second. Yeah, so this game popped up, I think, about 10 days ago on Game Pass, and what grabbed me was the trailer. The trailer looked really funny, and it reminded me of Super Lucky games. You know, it's the same sort of environment where you go around, you collect different coins and objects, and you sort of fight with different adversaries that you meet in an open world. The main thing is cartoonish, highly entertaining, and very funny. So that's the first thing. You want to play that sort of game to be entertained, to laugh, you know, a bit like watching silent comedy, so to speak. And the game's been created by a company called Agro Crab, and I never heard of them before, to be honest with you, and they also don't have much information on the internet. And it's a small game development studio based in Seattle, and they had also a couple of other projects. They are, if you're familiar with the studio, you've probably heard of Going Under, which is a third-person roguelite, which is exploring dungeons and all kinds of caves, and you know. But this game is very different. As I said, reminded me of Super Lucky in some ways, and I'll tell you a bit more about it straight away. So you come in and you're playing this crab, and this crab is having a small shell, which is he's using it as his house, like his home, and then some nasty, I don't know, it's like a shark, some sort of creature emerges and decides that because the crab wasn't paying any taxes, they will repossess the home, right? And they basically take away that shell, and crab's being left without home, needs to be finding an alternative and starts exploring the open world, and he's then finding all types of threats which are springing up from the environment, and it's very funny. It's very funny, and they said generally the description is a Souls-like adventure, and not gone this far in the game to tell you that that's exactly what you'd be getting. But there is this element of the crab dying and then being revived through some sort of soul-like procedure. That also was very entertaining. And it's been released on day one, really, through Xbox. And I think it was April 25th, day one release, if I'm not mistaken, because I have seen it there already for about 2 or 3 weeks. So, you know, very, very entertaining. And you will have to be tackling other crabs, other snails, other fishes, and you are doing everything possible to survive. So on one hand, although it comes across as a game which is for all ages, maybe children in particular, it does have this sort of darkish undertones, and it's funny how they've done it. You know, you look at the game and say, oh, that's for children, but actually the content is everything but. And as this crab loses his protective shell, then obviously needs to be looking for another and fight for it. So let me just very quickly see, there was something else I wanted to remark on. Basically, I remember that game being presented a little while back as part of Nintendo, and that's Nintendo Indie Games presentations, and then they kind of described it to be Souls-like, and there were like core mechanics like the shell system, and you know, it becomes like Krill's customized armor, sort of discarded trash that the crab is picking up as he goes on his quest to find his new home. And then you also have a lot of the open world exploration, so that there are many areas which you need to go to, and you need to master the skills in order to swim and jump that are, you know, a bit tricky. At times I was struggling in some areas. I was not jumping high enough or swimming fast enough in order to get ahead. Excuse me. But generally you get into the swing of things quite fast, and then you play it with ease. And also they said that the game has been released on several platforms, and that's Nintendo Switch, PC, Xbox One, and Series X and S. So generally the reviews have been very good. Generally between 7 and 9. There was some, I haven't seen any indicating that this is 10 out of 10. But from my experience, and played it for a couple of hours, I thought the game was highly entertaining and definitely giving us a lot of fun, an interesting gameplay, funny dialogue, and everything that you would want from an indie game, you know, a quirky indie game. And you can play it at any time in between the big titles like, I don't know, Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Destiny. So, highly recommended to everyone. Again, I want to remind everyone that Xbox does have lots of indie titles on the Game Pass, and just make sure that you download quite a few and try them from time to time to offer some support to these indie developers, which indeed will be greatly appreciated. If we are not accessing the titles either on cloud or through downloads, then this service may be phased out because they'll see there isn't much interest. And every one of those indie titles is very deeply scrutinized by the senior team at Xbox, who will be just selecting the very best. Don't forget, there are many indie titles out there. You get today sometimes single-person development companies, and you know there's an abundance of choice, but they only choose the very best. And I have to say, I've not played any on the Game Pass which I would consider to be poor, right? Well, all like from very good upwards in various ways, and they're quite different with the systems they offer, you know. So Haunty and Another Crab's Treasure are some of these. Okay, so we are now progressing towards the big event, the event that was indeed given to us yesterday by Sony. So, what's happened in that big showcase for PlayStation? Has anyone watched it? I'd like to know. I'm curious. And what did you think? Well, first of all, I need to tell you, I personally, I'm to a degree, although I absolutely love PlayStation. I played PlayStation, let's say, ever since they initiated PlayStation 1. I'm totally averse to these state of play presentations because they're so poor. They're so poorly made. You know, considering you have so many interesting vlogs and showcase events on YouTube and Twitch done by professionals and those people who are doing it as a hobby, to give you a major presentation that consists just of poorly glued up together trailers without any major developer commentary or anything is just mind-boggling. I don't understand it. And every single time I've watched, particularly when they started at the beginning, this was grossly disappointing. And I have to tell you, when I woke up today and I looked on Twitter, I couldn't believe how many negative views and comments about the presentation were there. They were not to do just with the structure of it. It was more to do with some titles and some other ideas which people picked up from what they've seen. But you know, it was just like an ocean of negativity, and I was staggered. I thought, my goodness, why is that? The actual presentation was not too bad compared to some of the old that I watched, you know, months or years back, and it did have a bit of commentary from people related to people who made a couple of games. I think it was it Monster Hunter, and it was Concord as well. They had people from the Concord development team doing a very, very brief, very anecdotal type of introduction, and then two people from Sony Executive Committee who was saying a few things, but that's just all scratching the surface. It's very far from, I mean, what's the idea? The idea is that people don't want to listen to anyone and they just want to see the trailers or what? You know, like for instance, when you watch TV programs on what's in cinema, you would want a person who is knowledgeable to be telling you, you know, what films you should be seeing. You're like, oh, and you know, I really wonder, we used to have a lot of that in the past, and in recent years, that's all gone. You don't have anymore many of those TV programs in which people will be telling you, well, these films are very good, these ones are not. And I guess I can't stop thinking that there must be some sort of monetary interest in preventing those people from speaking their mind out, because you can tell, well, this film is just best to avoid. And if you say that, and if you are seen as a top critic, then most people will not go and see it. So that I've not seen, and I've not seen such reviews anywhere for quite some time. But at the end of the day, the reality of the matter is certain films do not deliver. They're terrible, and somebody who watches these films needs to say to the world, don't go and see it because they're terrible. In the same way as you would say this is a terrible game. It's just that don't waste your money on it. You know, but what I'm trying to say is that was possible in the past, but today in this sort of highly developed competitive industries, we are not allowed to do that. And there have been lots of comments on Twitter and Reddit in particular, in which some of the top critics for video games have been heavily criticized, as, you know, the readers or the viewers know that this person really disliked a particular title, but he was not allowed to say it because he works for IGN or he works for Games Radar. He's at Eurogamer. Therefore, he needs to be careful not to offend the publishers and the developers for obvious reasons. And you know, that seems to be very biased and not really as accurate as possible. And therefore, for me, podcasts and independent projects like mine, for instance, are very interesting to, more interesting to listen to, because you will get really unbiased views on what's happening out there, and sometimes very good description of a particular product. So coming back to Sony, what I felt was, well, I looked forward to it. I wanted to see what will be countering all the titles that we'll see next week with Microsoft. And I knew that amongst those there will be some really, really good titles. But really, yet again, it was given in a very flimsy format. And I have to say, when it began, you had like two separate countdowns, and one of them looked really bizarre. It looked like something out of 1960s TV. I couldn't work out where this was coming from, and then you had executives also introducing a few titles and saying a few things, but it's a very, very, very anecdotal. And the main body of this very short 35-minute long presentation was just trailers and a bit of gameplay. And for me, that's just not good enough. It's just too poor. I could watch these trailers on YouTube. This is no presentation. Anyway, we'll have a look at the titles, and just keep in mind that there's so much negativity about this presentation. And every one of those was receiving an avalanche of thumbs down on Twitter and Reddit in particular, and I'm sure on Discord people debated it, and sometimes the debates were about particular titles or trailers, but I think overall what I'm getting is everyone's fed up with Sony not investing in a proper showcase event. You've seen so many showcases coming from the big developers, from big corporations, the publishers, and they're really beautifully done. Even if you don't like the titles, you'll still sit there and listen to the comments and views, and it'll be interesting to watch, right? And this was just completely lame, and I can't believe for the life of me, Sony and PlayStation do a lot better console-wise in terms of the sales and gaming and everything than Microsoft on the global scale, and not to be investing in something which is so necessary for your growth, for your development, for your gaming community, it baffles me. I talked about it many times, and I talked to people who are involved in the process when I met them at some real life conventions, and it just seems to be like water stuck back. But it does remind me of what was observed with the phonographic industry. People working in music publishing. They just didn't want to wake up to the emergence of streamable medias and the streaming platforms on the internet. They thought nobody was going to be listening to that, and it will never be a proper threat to what you had on vinyl and CDs. And look what happened. They were waiting until the last 5 minutes, up to the point where everything was already literally going down the drain, and then they decided to change the pricing strategies and offers. It just seemed ridiculous. So it's like wanted to hold on to it up to a point where everything is gone, and it doesn't work anymore like this. We live in a very fast-changing world, and the industries will have to be a lot more flexible if they want to be surviving. And I did say in my recent podcast that I feel the approach that PlayStation is taking, they've changed the leadership. They have new people in there who are just pursuing the same selection of ideas, and I don't see the wisdom in that. I don't see how the exclusives and the games which are tied to a particular platform will be able to survive in an environment where cross-platform games that are offered free of charge make billions. I don't get it. I mean, is somebody blind in there, or they're sort of going to nightclubs and enjoying late-night dinners instead of analyzing markets, or what? It's just difficult to say. Anyway, so coming back to what happened yesterday, we had quite a selection of titles, and some really caught my eye, some were slightly disappointing, and I'll tell you all about it in a moment. So, the first thing that really grabbed me was they've not talked about this event for some time. It just literally sprang out of woodwork, and probably in response to quite a selection of the big events taking place within the next couple of weeks, knowing that Microsoft and Ubisoft and the big sort of Summer Game Festival, all of those would be lined up. Then obviously Bungie having their presentations, all of them will be lining up next week, and that itself must have been raising eyebrows at Sony, and they came up with this presentation more or less what you would call on short notice. It wasn't like within 48 hours prior to the actual broadcast, but it was almost, I mean, it felt almost as if it was like that, right? And the 35-minute presentation was really packed out for different titles and various trailers. Some are longer than others. I thought that the Concord, the first presentation, was very lengthy, and it occupied probably more space than anything else. And so basically it was a combination of a variety of different PS5 titles, which represent different genres and different type of gameplay that are coming our way within the next 18 months. So also they introduced 2 PlayStation Virtual Reality 2 games, and they also have been giving right at the end a surprise return of Astrobot, and I have to say that was probably one of the very best moments of the presentation, their State of Play showcase, because everybody loves that mascot and it just seemed incredible. And when the when the trailer started, you had him jumping on a controller, that's the PlayStation controller, flying around on it, and then you had something that looked like PlayStation 5 Pro emerging. So there's been a lot of speculation today in medias whether this was also an advert for PS5 Pro. That has been talked about, but I'm not sure. I mean, you know, PS5 is state of the art as it is. I mean, what can be made better? I don't really know. It needs to be seen. So the first game they showcased yesterday was a game called Concord, and this game's been kept under the wraps for some time, and it comes from Firewalk. And I have to say, when the game started, right, it gave us a very lengthy cinematic cutscene that looked absolutely like a cinematic introduction of a single-player game. When I watched it, I thought, hang on a minute, this looks so similar to Guardians of the Galaxy. It just literally, it is that, just with different characters. And then, after that beautiful cinematic sequence, which was very entertaining, very funny, and grabbed everyone, you realize this is something that looks a bit like Bleeding Edge. It's a deathmatch PvP, 5 versus 5. What? I mean, it's just ridiculous. How on earth did somebody think that presentation was going to be attracting interest? If you were to go to YouTube today, and if you were to look at the video and the trailer, they received less than 18% of favorable likes or comments. Less than 18%. Everything else was just negative. And I've looked at the numbers. The number was like, don't quote me on this, I'll just give you an example, like 2,500 positive, 14,000 negative. It was shocking. And then I was worried, really. What's the reason for that? Well, the game technically looked very advanced, but what's the reason for those negative ideas and negative feedback and, you know, negative comments? And the main reason for that was what they just told you. The game looked like a single-player game, which is similar to Guardians of the Galaxy. That will be highly entertaining, greatly playable, massively open world and flying and everything. And it turns out to be a selection of death matches, very similar to Overwatch and Bleeding Edge. I would say I did see some platforms in there that reminded me of Bleeding Edge, and that was just crazy. And in fact, the way they presented it, at no stage had they said this is a PvP game. And when you watched the cinematic part, you were convinced that this was going to be a single-player game. So, you know, that itself was causing a huge disappointment. There's so many comments on Twitter saying, oh, what is this? How can you do a presentation of that sort for a PvP game? It's just really weird. I've never seen a presentation for a PvP game like this. I've got to say, it's a huge risk for Firewalk to take. And I'm sure they will be scratching heads after seeing how negatively everything was indeed received today. And there was a huge amount of effort put into both the cinematic and the presentation of the title. So from what you can get, I mean, the in-game mechanics are very similar to Overwatch. You select the characters, you get into the matches, and then you're playing basically, you know, elimination, and that was it. And the game is coming out on August the 23rd. And in Eurogamer, they were asking, could this be the perfect second course after Helldivers earlier this year? Well, I am not really at all convinced, and having the environment and the elements that really look like Guardians of the Galaxy, and then that being thrown in, I mean, yeah. Or is it? Is this a single-player game that will have just a PvP? You know, I think that they'll probably have to consider to make a single-player game in view of what they've heard and seen, as the reaction from video gaming community was very, very immediate. Anyway, anyone who's interested, I really recommend the beautiful cinematic introduction. It is incredible. It's just, I mean, I thought when I watched it, this was going to be contesting Guardians of the Galaxy and Star Wars Outlaws. I guess Star Wars Outlaws in style was very similar, the actual engine they used for the game. But when I've seen it's PvP, then it's a different story altogether. I mean, X-Defiant and Helldivers 2, and you just launched the game at the wrong time. August the 23rd, too close to the release of these other two games, and it is not going to work. It will be disaster, I'm telling you. And that's very sad to see. really, for me, it's very sad to see. Then we have the second big announcement, which has been anticipated for some time, and that is about God of War Ragnarok, right? And it's been expected that that game will come to PC, and this is coming together with its Valhalla DLC in one big package, and it's adding unlocked frame rates, DLSS, XeSS and FSR support, as well as support for super ultra-wide monitors. So basically, you have a mode in there which you can enable, and it is going to be like a massive big widescreen picture, you know, like an incredibly elongated, very extended widescreen cinematic version of the game. And if you have 3-piece monitors, which are sort of semi-surrounding you, you will be able to play it on that. So it's certainly a method that they have considered, and it is going to be very, very much of interest to everyone. But if I'm not mistaken, I've seen some news today also indicating that everyone who wants to play it on PC will have to be then subscribing to PlayStation, and they'll have to open a PlayStation a live account. And, you know, that's been so unpopular with Helldivers, and they had to basically backtrack on the whole idea. And I'm not sure whether this is a rumor or fact, so don't quote me on this. But if that happens, the game will suffer as far as the PC release is concerned. So there was another title that really grabbed me. I thought it was very interesting, and cinematics were definitely appealing. And there were several games of that type yesterday, basically kind of old Japan and samurais and fighting, but really beautifully designed, very immersive environment, lots of weird enemies, and history. You know, history of Japan seems to be featuring now in quite a few games. A very big title arriving in November from Ubisoft is obviously Assassin's Creed Shadows, where you have 2 characters going back to old Japan, and one is a samurai, the other one is a warrior. And you will be learning about the history of the country through the game. So you have this is Dynasty Warriors Origins, and that's giant army battles in there, and all kinds of heroes on horsebacks and all kinds of enemies. So you know, interesting to see. I quite like the trailer, and I wonder really what is going to be happening in the game. It looked big, very ambitious, on an epic scale. And then you have a couple of there were a few sequences with one character fighting hundreds or thousands of foot soldiers, and I'm not sure what the activity is going to be, but they are speculating that the strength of this game is on its in-game mechanics and cinematics. So it should be like one of the most spectacular games that Omega Force had even produced. And it will be launched in 2025. So then you had a game that I quite liked, and it seemed like a game for all ages, you know, family friendly, Infinity Nikki. And it's described as an open world dress-up adventure. So it's all about yourself getting styled as you kind of travel across the world of Mirrorland with your cat. And this cat is very, very cute and very funny. So the trailer was, I guess, curious to a degree. On one hand, it seemed like a family-friendly game, but it ended on a sour note. It ended on something that, to me, looked like a walk away from a horror game. So I really wonder what kinds of dangers will be lurking in there in the dark for the lead character in this game. And graphically, visually, seemed very appealing, and just quite curious. There was nothing of substance told about what we are going to be doing in this game. So I think the writer from Eurogamer assumed it's something to do with collecting items and getting dressed up, and, you know, like a Nintendo Switch type of game. But I don't think that's the case. I think they will also have some alpha and beta tests later this year, so we'll get to know more. But I liked it. I thought, I mean, certainly Infinity Nikki is the game that I'll have at the very top of my list. Then we have Ballad of Antara, and that is a game where you're going to be fighting lots of ugly beasts. Also a very good trailer, I have to say. And it is a massive, big, epic fantasy action RPG from Tipsworks and Involve Games. And you're not traveling through this very big, very strange, mysterious world all by yourself. You have a small child who is traveling together with you, and you're really similar to the previous trailer. You're not sure at all what the narrative is going to be, but visually very appealing. And as I said, yet again, we have the elements of Japan in there. Then Behemoth is the game coming from Skydance, and it's interesting. It seems to me that many more film studios are getting involved with the world of video gaming and making their titles more cinematic and more interactive, which again is just going to prove my point that those two industries are merging, and the new direction will be all about that degree of communication, interactivity, and also about the immersive quality of feature films, which is going to require a lot of investment. So this game, Skydance's Behemoth, is basically a PlayStation Virtual Reality 2 game, and therefore I guess watching a 2D trailer does not give you a proper picture of what you are going to be doing, but it seemed quite brutal, I have to admit, from what I've seen. And you are traveling through some mountains which are known as Forsaken Lands, and then we didn't get really any major gameplay in there. Very similar to the trailer we've seen a little while back where we're introducing the title. And then you have also hand-to-hand combat. And if I'm not mistaken, the hand-to-hand combat reminded me of Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls of Bethesda's. It just seemed like that. But then on the other hand, it is difficult to judge what the game's like, as it is obviously created for a virtual reality set. So, we need to try it on that one to see how this would all work. It seemed interesting, but I think considering that the other, it didn't really, for me, didn't grab me in the same way as the other two titles that I just described. Then we had a trailer belonging to the series which we know as Alien. So in here, this game, Alien Rogue Incursion, fun enough, is also a PlayStation Virtual Reality title, and I really wonder whether I would ever want to play it on virtual reality. And you know why? Because Alien is unbelievably scary, and when you watch it in cinema, particularly watch in IMAX, it's chilling. I don't know where you guys watched recent Alien films like Prometheus and what's the other one called, the second installment of it. It's horrifying. And do I want to be walking in virtual reality through those landscapes, finding those alien eggs and being chased by those creatures? I don't think so. I think it's not something that I want to be having in my dreams. And anyway, I'm just probably an exception. Some people might be excited to enter the world of Alien through the Oculus sets, but there you are. It was a very brief 50-second teaser, and it's called Alien Rogue Incursion. So reminded you of